Hello and welcome back to Horror Bois. This is the #1 horror movie podcast in all of downtown Kentucky's YouTube channel. I am your host, I guess, I don't know, Austin, joined as always
by Chris
and Isaiah.
And we are the Horror Bois. I don't know why I gave myself a title this time. It felt weird. I don't know why I did it. I just did it. And I
me and Isaiah are co-hosts. Whoa.
You guys are guests.
Austin is our dear leader.
That's the thing is, I was at that moment where, in the moment, I was like, I am the one who reads off all the notes.
He is the one.
I kind of do host this podcast.
He
does be that.
I consider both of you equals in it. But realistically, I do all the work, and you guys just give your opinions, and that's awesome, and I need that. But I deserve all the credit.
That's an even deal. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is our 10th episode, baby. We've made it to 10 episodes of this amazing podcast. I said amazing in a tone that made it sound like I don't actually think it's amazing, but I actually do genuinely enjoy the content we make here. We are a horror movie podcast. We review horror movies. If you've somehow made it through that much of the intro and don't know what we are, I don't know how. Probably need to get I need to get that intro more, concise and to the point, so people. But hey, yeah, no, I don't do that. We've been reviewing the Friday the 13th / Jason franchise because, when New Line bought it 2 movies before when they bought it in between 8 and 9, they had to drop the Friday the 13th franchise because they couldn't get the rights to that yet. I think they do now own it because I think the remake was made by New Line, but that's really not the point.
Neither here nor there.
We're not talking about the remake today. That's
anywhere
down the line. Today we are talking about Jason X. And you know what? I'm excited to talk about it.
So just to clarify, in case you are getting your hopes up or somehow haven't watched this movie and are watching this podcast, it is not a movie where Jason joins the X Games.
No.
It's just the 10th movie in the series.
Yeah.
Sorry to disappoint.
And it does start with our classic Jason Friday the 13th trope of ignoring the plot of the last movie. Kind of. They tease you into thinking this movie isn't. Because we have an opening credits that starts in hell, but then just transitions to not being in hell with no explanation. So...
Yeah.
Well, I think this is the movie where they most overtly just come right out and say, Jason regenerates. That's just a power that he's got,
but he got dragged.
I mean, obviously that has to be.
I took him wrong.
He's just like.
Let's ignore the last movie. Yeah. The last movie was trash, but he literally got dragged to hell.
Yeah.
I think that's not just regeneration.
Yeah.
I think that takes a slight more than regeneration to come back from being dragged to hell. I could be wrong. I've never been dragged to hell. I also don't have regeneration powers. But Chris will test his regeneration powers when we do our live podcast.
We'll discover that I'm actually a reincarnation of Jason.
The second half of the credits, though, it turns into this weird medical thing that, once again, is never really explained. They're just kind of cool visuals that they don't explain, and I think that's the point. They're just supposed to be
traveling through Jason's body.
Yeah, because Jason's being worked on. We do find out that he is at a research center in the next scene, so I guess this is the scientists there doing research on him. But once again...
Not just any research center.
That's right.
Crystal Lake Research Facility. Ooh.
In the year of...
The
we don't know
hamlet of Crystal Lake.
And it already feels like it's a little bit in the future in this part, but they don't tell you where in the future we are yet, and...
No.
The timeline is going to get real screwy when we talk about it a little bit later in this movie. They bring up a timeline, which breaks the timeline.
Nothing will make sense in due time.
So Jason, so we open up and we have we're at this Crystal Lake research facility, and Jason is chained up here, and he's scheduled to be cryogenically frozen later that day, because we find out much later in the movie the reason is because they can't kill him, so they feel like cryogenically freezing him is the best plan.
And this is the closest explanation we get as to why he's out of hell.
Yeah.
And that's you know.
But
It'd be one thing if they just ignored it. That'd be nice. But
to be fair, who cares? The last movie was so bad. Like, I'm fine with them not trying to explain how he got out of hell, because that movie was trash. In this movie, some people will think it's trash, and I respect those people, but I don't. I genuinely love this movie after watching it, and I'm looking forward to talking about
this movie.
Love might be a little extreme, but I do really enjoy it.
This is his favorite movie.
No, it definitely is probably like. We'll get that at the last part where we explain how I feel. I'm not going to.
Okay,
that's spoiler.
We're jumping ahead.
Yeah, but yeah. So we have this like military scientist doctor who comes in with a bunch of military guys, and he wants Jason moved. And he doesn't want him here. He wants to move him to this different facility. But Rowan doesn't want that to happen. The scientist who works at this facility is like, no, we can't do that. And the military guy's like, I'm just going to do it. I went over your head. There's nothing you can do about it. And he goes into the room to get Jason, but Jason's no longer there because in a scene before, this guy covered Jason with a blanket because he didn't like Jason staring at him. Which, it's fair. Jason never blinks. Like, that's a specific, specifically in this movie, something they make sure every time you see his eyes, they're open. There is never once he blinks. Once again, never been really established before, but now that's a character trait that is in this movie. Yeah.
It's one of his powers. Is that
he I don't know if it's a power.
Yeah.
Constant eye moisture is one of his powers.
Well, it's a part of his regeneration.
Yeah, it's just part of regeneration. His eye is actually, drying out,
constantly
but then immediately healing itself.
Yeah, you understand.
So this doctor wants to, this military scientist, he wants to move him, but they go in and they find out that actually somehow Jason has used his magic wumbo jumbo to put that guy in the chains instead of him, and he starts just killing all the military men. Now, none of these kills are great. I didn't write down any specific kills that happen in the scene, but he takes out 5 military guys who are all wearing bike helmets. The coolest
kill is probably where he uses the chains to
there are some
throw
cool
a blade through somebody.
He goes full Hellraiser.
And it felt a lot like Scorpion, and I was like, all right, cool. He's a Mortal Kombat character now.
Or Hellraiser, one of the two,
Yeah, or Pinhead.
Knowing this, they're probably, copying Hellraiser, because horror movies love especially the Jason franchise, goes, what if we just put this other horror movie in this? Which we'll kind of get to later.
And sci-fi.
Yeah. But yeah, so we have... He takes out all these people. Lastly, he kills the military scientist. And Rowan starts running away from him. We get the classic... The only time really in the movie where we get that classic cat and mouse stalking scene from Jason where he's trying to follow someone and she's running through this facility. Eventually, she gets a shotgun and starts shooting him repeatedly and tricks him into going into this cryostasis.
Just happens to land in it.
She kind of shoots him in and pushes something at him that kind of makes him stumble slightly back, just enough that she can close the door on him.
And then she stands way too close to the door and gets stabbed for it
through the door. Which, to be fair to her, a machete shouldn't be able to cut through that. I get that he's Jason, but the machete should have broke when he tried.
Yeah, the machete should have just gone
His machete's not magic.
Yeah.
That's never been established. And I'll be honest.
It's made out of adamantium.
I know I said that I enjoyed this movie. But at this point, I'm not enjoying this movie, because at this point, the movie feels like it's taking itself very seriously, and it's awkward. And this first, not an act, but 2 scenes feel a lot different than what this movie is about to become, because when he stabbed through that, they both ended up getting cryo-freezed, and the room goes into lockdown because it was breached, so now they're both stuck, and now we have a time jump. We're in, the true future now. We are now we'll find out in a couple scenes, but we're in the year 2455.
2450.
Yeah, 2455.
Yeah.
And we're back in the future, and we have these weirdly dressed, Chris mentioned, Star-Lord from the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. All of these
cool Star-Lord masks and super tall collars for some reason.
And all these people. At this point, I'm really not enjoying the movie yet, and I'm writing down my notes are things like they are in this decrepit facility. They all have stupid future names. Because they just start throwing future names at you. Like 4 or 5 in one scene. And at this point, I didn't write them down. Later on, when we get the characters start doing things, I know
they throw out names like KM and Azrael.
Yeah.
And
which is a demon, I think.
He is. It's like one of the devil, like a devil. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unsure, but yeah, Azrael. It's
that
jumped
among other names.
And a KM, who we later find out is a cyborg.
Yeah. Well, she's an android.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
She's just a robot. Yeah.
She's an android. Which is the old one. Is she an android? It depends on which sci-fi you're in, if she's an android or not, because the definition of android changes in different sci-fi. But in the very, alien definition, which is another horror movie in space, she would be deemed an android, I believe.
Well, the official dictionary definition of an android is a humanoid-looking robot.
Okay.
And a cyborg is someone who is
Yeah, I didn't mean to say cyborg.
Robotic.
I meant cyborg was a complete misspeak. I remember at some other point in my life there was this big discourse on if someone was an android or not, and I was like, okay, whatever. So I just want to clarify.
Definitely an android.
I'm just clarifying. I think she's an android, and she's definitely, at least according to the Alien franchise, she would be an android.
Okay.
But yeah, then Azrael is an idiot and gets his arm chopped off by Jason's frozen machete.
Jason accidentally, in his completely dead and frozen state, chops somebody's arm off.
Yeah.
His machete's just razor sharp all the time.
He's unstoppable. Yeah. It's magic. The machete is the magic.
It is. Machete is magic. Oh, that also reminds me. When they opened the cryo thing, he's in a completely different position than when we last saw him getting frozen. He's in attack position with his arm up when he was just staring out before.
The future people's arms.
It's like they filmed those scenes on different days and forgot where they put him. And we're like, well, it'd be really cool if he's about to come down and kill the guy. But yeah.
Doesn't he freeze with his arm up?
Uh-huh.
There's a motion of him being frozen as he lifts his arm up and then he just crackles.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll give the movie credit that they did show that shot and I missed it. I apologize to the movie. It is art now. There are no flaws now.
So anyways, Azrael gets his arm chopped off and you're like, oh wow. And then he's panicking. And then Cam's like, oh, don't worry. It's just your arm. And then she injects some chemical into his arm, and then it stops bleeding out.
Cauterizes it, kind of, makes it not bleed out and stuff.
It regrows flesh around the stump.
Yeah.
Then I have here we have about 2 scenes. We're just kind of cutting back and forth to different spots of the spaceship now because they're on the spaceship. And I wrote down a bunch of weird space crew talk. Because it's a lot of nothing dialogue at this point. This person saying this thing. The only good part is we find out the pilot, he finds out that there's going to be a girl. They found this girl survivor. And he's like, oh, cool, girl, cool. And they're gonna bring her back. That's cool. He's really excited that there's a girl. And which kind of would come off as creepy, which it still is. But it gets saved by this awesome line in the last time we see him before we cut away from him, where he's like, I'm so lonely. Which is the moment where I realized I liked this movie. Because that is kind of a central theme, is this really quippy dialogue throughout it. Very self-aware, very tongue-in-cheek, very campy, zany, crappy in a sense, but in the perfect way of perfectly given dialogue. Not to the quality of Jason's Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, but in that same vein of knowing what they're doing and just being over the top weird with it, and I love it. Where were we here now? Now we have a bunch of weird space science that they don't explain at all to reattach Azrael's arm and to bring Rowan back to life with these nanobot technology.
Yeah. It's all nanobots.
Chainmail and there's something about they had to take off her clothes though for some reason, and one character I don't remember which, I think it might have been Azrael, got really excited. Was it
No.
Was it Waylander?
It was Waylander.
Waylander gets real excited about
it.
And I believe it's
Janessa.
Janessa is like, no, I'll do it. which is just like, okay, it's a Friday the 13th movie. It has to have, really music. I'm trying to think. What's our word? What's our harmonica themed word for horny? We don't have a word for that yet. But there's there's a lot of
very eager to play
music
together. Yeah.
But yeah,
and also all these people are teens, despite the fact that they do not look like teens or college students.
Technically, they're not teens.
I
would argue technically they are not teens.
They're students of a professor on a spaceship.
Yeah, and
Somewhere.
terms like midterm are being thrown around, which is typically more of a college term.
College age.
So I would say they are co-eds. Space co-eds, which is probably also a really crappy B-movie horror movie that we could probably watch at some point called Space Co-eds. I'm sure that exists. I'll look for it.
That might not be a movie.
So that's a good point. Ooh, not a movie we can watch.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, this is episodes. Just like this movie, this is a different episode.
It's something.
So yeah, we have a bunch of weird space talk. Oh, wrong spot. Oh, then I wrote down here in this next line after Rowan comes back to life, so many weird names. Because we get another, 10 names thrown at us of, Canis and, all these other weird ones that I can't even remember off the top of my head. I'll remember when I read them.
Yeah.
Now we cut back to, I believe it's Adrian, who is, she's doing stuff with, what the crap are their names? Oh.
Stony
and
girl.
Kinsa. It's Kinsa. I remember her name comes up later. I found it. Stony and Kinsa. They're being real eager to play music and not
eager to play the harmonica.
Yeah, they're not doing their science.
And they're eager about, but it's like they're eager about Jason.
Yeah.
And
Jason's got a big harmonica.
Yeah. Oh, they make a comment about his super tiny brain, and then the other girl's like, "Well, I bet he's got a harmonica the size of a horse."
Yeah,
dude,
it's very much Friday the 13th still. These are generic, eager to play music teens.
Head empty.
Yeah, so Adrian is kind of a red herring here. She seems the most level-headed, so she sends them off. She kind of feels like what could be a final girl. Spoiler, she's not. She's actually the first to die. But we'll get that in a moment.
Of the final.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, she removes Jason's bad eye, and then
for some reason.
Yeah, for some reason.
And then we cut back and forth between the teams working on. Oh, sorry, Rowan's actually not back. Yeah, I spoke a little too soon because we're cutting back and forth between the team who's trying to bring Rowan back and the team and her working on Jason. We cut back to Rowan, who wakes up and she finds out that they're in the year 2455, and she's a little taken aback by that because we find out a little bit later that's 450 years after she. Well, they say 450 years, which doesn't line up with her own dialogue, so it's I guess roughly 450 years. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Rowan finds out that. Then we have this professor who is telling this guy. I don't believe he ever gets a name. This buyer or something. This shady.
He's like an old decrepit dude who's laying in bed, probably bedridden.
And he's
trying
got
black teeth.
Yeah, and the professor's trying.
Merchant of some kind.
Yeah, and the professor's trying to sell him these two findings they have in Rowan and Jason. And at first the guy's like, "Why would I care? You know how many people you brought back from? How many people are out there? There's hundreds of them. Oh, but she's been dead for 450 years. That's so much more than the 250 tops we have out there." And he's like, "No one's gonna care." But then he mentions that the other one's name is Jason Voorhees, and he's like, "Oh well, that guy, he killed 200 people. That would be, we could probably get some money off of him for the right buyer." And we're like, "Oh, okay." So the professor wants to sell Jason.
Yep.
Then we cut to
hard on cash.
Yeah. Because he's hard on cash. Because they do say that. Why? But here's the thing. It doesn't matter. Because, spoiler, it's don't call it Friday the 13th movie because they don't own that rights. But it's that movie. So every character pretty much is gonna die, so especially the creeps. So then we come back to Adrian, who cuts off Jason's mask and is like, "Ugh, no wonder you wear this," and puts it back on him.
Yeah. I don't understand the abuse of Jason in this, because it's one thing if they're studying him, but she doesn't even examine his eye. She's like, and that goes in the trash, and she just lops some skin off around his face. She's like, all right, that was for nothing. Just puts the mask. I don't understand it.
Well, I think she puts the weird, goopy eye in the cryo sink.
Yeah,
because there's a cryo sink for some reason.
The cryo sink.
To be fair, I do
right,
think they are. She is keeping all the stuff. She is the one, and with the way they've established her character in the couple scenes we've seen of her, I think she is taking this job seriously of dissecting him.
Yeah, she's the nerd.
You're right.
But even though she's not,
she's the nerd fool.
I guess she's the nerd.
Yeah.
Now we have what I'm going to describe as the most awkward, off-putting scene in the whole franchise, which is the Professor and Janessa have a harmonica kind of playing scene, which is different and weird, and I'm not going to, shame anyone for what they're into. There's some tongs involved, and wearing the traditional
lingerie
clothing of a different gender. And also, he's her professor, which, even if we ignore the just objectively slightly weird things he's into, he's also a creep. But this is actually her midterm, apparently, is this. So she passed, so good for her. Moving right along. We have Jason, who's thawing, and goo is dripping all over the floor now. It's just a cool shot. The goo really never matters. It kind of, once again, like a lot of things in this franchise, they throw a little too much time staring at it to make you think it matters, but it's just to show that he's thawing.
Oh, dude, the goo matters. I'm sorry, the goo matters, absolutely. Jason is like this swamp creature. Yeah, I think so. Jason is like this creature from the old world, from the swamp, and especially even more so in 450 years in the future, he's this primordial thing. Right. And then he's landing in the sanitary, clinical, antiseptic science room, and everything's all organized and clean until, Jason starts spewing his goo everywhere.
This is why I love having you on this podcast, because that's a really nice perspective that I did not consider. And I'm very, okay, that's, you have swayed me on that. I know I've swayed you on me talking about my love for some of these movies that make you go, that movie wasn't bad. So I'm glad you swayed me on something for once. You made me
feels weird that... what's her name? Vanessa? What is it? Adrian?
Adrian.
Yeah. She looks back multiple times, and it's very clear that there's, goo dripping off the side of the table. And she just doesn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to care. She keeps hearing his, sounds being made from him thawing, and she's just like, yep. Goo on the floor, completely normal. Just another Tuesday with goo on the floor.
Yeah.
She could be thinking more goo. Just gonna have to clean that up later, as always. It's routine to have floor goo when you unfreeze the corpses.
It happens. It's a common thing, actually. But then we cut to after that we cut to KM, who we find out at this point is an android. You can kind of tell, they kind of hint at it, but this is where they confirm it.
Oh yeah.
And she wants boobs. That's the whole scene. She's telling
and her nipple falls off. Don't forget, that's very important.
Suerin or something like that, is that his name, right?
Sonoron.
That's it. Sonoron. She's telling Sonoron that she wants that, and he's like, you don't need it. I like you for who you are, because he made her, I guess.
There's a Pygmalion situation going on here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we cut to, at this point, to be fair in the movie, I don't think they were unnamed, but at this point I didn't realize who they were yet. But I think they do actually, this movie, to be credited to this movie, they give them weird names, so it was information overload. They actually did, introduce every character at the beginning, not the classic, wait till they die. To be fair, those first scene, they throw 30 names at you, and I go, what? And then I realize who all of them are when they're dying. But to be fair to the movie, they do a little bit better credit. Or at least they tried to. We have Stoney and Kinsa they're starting to play some harmonica. And we cut back and forth between them and Jason. Jason, he's still falling, and I think this is the point where Adrian starts like noticing sounds from behind her, looks back and nothing's happening. She's like, all right. And we cut back and forth to the harmonica scene in this, and then Jason eventually turns around. Jason's not there. He's right behind her, and he kills her by putting her in that cryo sink Chris mentioned and freezes her face.
Excellent death.
Smashing her face, and it shatters everywhere. And then, which, to be fair, that would have been enough. That could have been enough. They could have just had him smash it and move on, and not shown the viscera of her head that was left. But he pulls the arm back to show the hole where her head once was. So, good on the movie. That was cool.
And something else too about this scene is that we learn later how, as you put it, they know what they're doing when it comes to how Jason works and the tropes and everything. When they, we'll get to that. But with this scene, as you mentioned, they go back and forth, and I think, are we meant to understand that the harmonica is kindling his lust for blood again? This is
I think
quickening Jason's body.
Because it flips between all these different scenes of harmonica playing.
Yeah.
And then he's just slowly coming back to life.
And he sits up right after one of the more graphic shots of him showing the harmonica, and you're like, no, you were definitely right. That is definitely, I feel at the very least hinted at, if not outright said, this is what you're supposed to take from this. But yeah, so he kills Adrian, who is one of the few smart, decent characters in the movie. So they just kill her immediately, of course.
Boring.
So then we go to the professor who's in the room with having a conversation with Rowan. It's very expositional. Normally I would just write exposition and skip past it. But Rowan has this one line that just infuriated me, because we kind of teased that a little bit earlier in the video. This is that moment where we find out this movie doesn't know its own timeline at all, because she mentions that the first time they executed Jason was back in 2008, which doesn't fit with the timeline of us knowing the first time he died, as well as knowing where they found them, because this is 450 years in the future, which you could maybe chalk up to, they mean roughly 450 years. But Isaiah, you were telling me offline about something you realized.
When they first go down the little expedition into the cryogenic chamber, the android lady says, they've been here for precisely 4.55 centuries. And so I feel the whole timeline roughness could have been explained by, it's about 4.5 centuries, or whatnot.
But instead,
they've got the android saying they have been here exactly 455 years, and the year is 2455.
Which means to be fair, it being set in that first scene being set in 2000, kind of makes sense, because that's when the movie was made. That would have been fair. Other than they did already kind of make that scene feel kind of futuristic, which kind of made it need to be at least a couple years in the future. But either way,
the whirlwind future of 2008.
And spoiler alert, they don't completely retcon the timeline though, because later on in this movie they mention 1980 being an important year. So yeah, I'll be honest. I've said I like this movie, but this part really infuriates me, because it just makes no sense.
Why does it make you so angry though?
Because it's the simple things. It's one thing when you make a bad movie. It's another thing when you make a bad movie because you weren't paying attention. This wasn't we didn't have the budget. We didn't do that. You just didn't pay attention to your own lines in the movie. Even when they retcon...
But if you stop to pay attention...
Yeah, but if
you just stop paying attention, then you're not angry anymore.
We're reviewing this. I have to pay attention. I have to write down notes. I have to pay attention. So I notice when they do things like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Now we we cut back to a scene where I didn't write pretty much anything other than two characters' names because...
You know what? Hold on. I'm not ready to move on yet, actually.
Oh, okay.
So now that you say all that, what it comes down to is lazy writing.
Mm-hmm.
Which, in a lot of the other parts of the movie, the writing is, like, very fun and quippy. And so it feels like the amount they paid attention to, like, making stupid throwaway jokes versus, you know, actually making anything in the movie make sense was not exactly balanced.
No.
At all. And it's not like it would have been hard. It would have just been like, oh yeah, it was back in 1998 that we first started doing those tests, or, you know, anything. Or just saying, we found them 400 years ago, or they got frozen 400 years ago.
Yeah.
It, you know, there was
25 years ago.
Yeah.
Anything. They could have just picked a year that made sense for the other dialogue in the movie, but they didn't.
Nope. Why would they?
But yeah. So we cut back to a scene where I think it's just kind of like one of those more kind of like characters talking to each other scenes. And this is where I first realized the names of the characters. I can't remember how to pronounce his name. Sunaran and Janessa. This is where I first realized, oh, that's those characters' names, because it was very obvious in this scene who they were. But nothing actually of note happens in the scene. I just wrote down their names. Then we cut to Jason, who is showing up at the harmonica room for earlier, and he kills Stoney, but for some reason, like, drags Stoney out of the room, leaving Kinsa. I had to flip to when we said I wrote her name, because at this point I just wrote harmonica girl.
Yeah, he, like, stabs Stoney and then pulls the machete out of the other side of him. Yeah,
it was really cool death. Like, it was cool, but he pulls him out of the room for some reason, rather than killing her.
Yeah.
I thought that was weird.
Decided against it.
I remember being... It seemed like... I was encouraged, thinking like, oh, okay, Jason's gonna hide some bodies again. Like, yes.
It seemed like that was something they've been ignoring. He does move a couple bodies around later. To be fair to Jason, he brings back, like... We'll get to it. There's actually a moment where he, like, moves a body just for, like, a joke.
I don't think we see Stoney's body ever again.
No, Stoney's just dead. Stoney dies. He leaves Kinsa, though, and then the next scene we have her meeting up with all the other students, she and Rowan. She meets up with them, she's finding them. At this point we cut to the sergeant telling the grunts to get ready. We're gonna take Jason down.
We're gonna kill this guy.
Yeah. Then we cut to a scene that I thought was the grunts initially, but we find out a little later it's not, because you see Azrael in this scene. You have Stone Cold. I wrote down Stone Cold because he looks like Stone Cold, and we didn't get a name for him for a while.
When we watched it initially, I made a really funny joke, and I said, "Oh, that's mildly chilly Dallas."
Yeah, his name is Dallas. And fun fact about Dallas, he's the writer of the movie.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Serious?
Yeah, no, he's the writer of the movie.
Oh, well, he's the reason that we...
Yeah, he's the reason that I both love and hate this movie. He's a funny guy who needs to have someone help him write movies. But yeah, so Dallas and Azrael are in a VR game, which you don't realize is a VR game at first. You think this is like the grunts killing other things that happen to be on the ship. You're like, oh crap, there's these giant aliens on the ship as well. Which, to be fair,
aliens.
They look like crap, but this movie is made in 2001, so I will give them a pass on them looking like crap. It's not their fault. Like, those looked okay, like good even probably for 2001 computer graphics. And honestly, I've seen a lot worse.
So they're meant to be computer graphics.
That's also true.
So I guess that's a clean excuse.
Yeah, you can explain away with VR games aren't perfect. Exactly. Even, now in the actual future from when this was made, well, not the future where
when we see the incredible realistic women in the VR game later on in the movie.
That's a good point. It points out the problem. They should look better. But also, me and Chris on a different video series we watch other movies for this other series we do, and we watched Spy Kids 3, which comes out like 5 years later, and everything looks 10 times worse. So I will
much worse.
I'll even
it's
give
impressive,
this,
really.
I'll give this movie some credit. These characters don't look that bad. Like even these aliens aren't that bad. So
no,
but we do realize they're actually in VR though, and Jason's there now in this VR, and he's killing the aliens. Killed one of the aliens for him, and then kills both of them. But it's in VR, so it doesn't count. But he can kill them there somehow. But they're like, oh, we don't count those as deaths. It doesn't count. I don't know what this glitch is. And then they turn off the VR game, and they find out it's actually Jason. And he starts, he kills him, of course. First, he does this cool, like, spinning pro wrestling-esque backbreaker on Azrael to kill him. And then he smashes Frank, not Frank at all.
Dallas.
Dallas.
Mildly chilly Dallas.
How can you forget? Yeah.
My next word here was face, but I read face as Frank for some reason. My brain just stopped working there for a second.
No. Yeah, he smashes his Frank in.
Yeah, he smashes Dallas's face, stone cold. What? Stone cold. His face into the wall. He breaks it. He breaks his face. He doesn't. He just smashes his face and he leaves him. And then we cut to the sergeant, who his name is like Sergeant Brodsky, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sergeant Brodsky, and he's got all these grunts. He says all their names right here, but I couldn't tell who he's talking about yet. I will mention each one of their names as they die, pretty much, because that's when I realized their names. These are our classic, don't really explain who the character is until they die characters for the movie. Most of the other characters in the movie like get establishment where you kind of care about them when they die to a point at least. Like it's not just here's the first time you see them, they die. These grunts are pretty much here they are, time for them to die. But yeah, so they start going. There's this female grunt who I believe later we find out is Briggs.
The gruntette.
Yeah, Briggs. She finds Dallas's body. Then we cut to the engineer Crutch, I believe is his name. Yeah, that's his future name, Crutch. All right. Mm-hmm. And he almost gets killed by Jason. He's kind of getting spooked. It's kind of a little bit of a prolonged scene of him kind of hearing things behind him, things kind of jangling and moving a little bit. And then he sees it's kind of cool shot. He sees Jason's face in the reflection right in front of him, but he gets saved at like the last second by all the grunts. Mm-hmm. They show up and they kind of start shooting at Jason, and he gets saved and he runs away. I wrote here that they light him up because they just shoot him a bunch, but Jason, obviously bullets mean nothing to him for the most part.
Except when he gets knocked back.
Yeah. So
completely knocked down by.
So he gets away, and they kind of all start chasing him. And we have a scene where they're all kind of just looking for him, and they all break off looking for him. And the first one who finds him is Sven, who gets his neck snapped. Then we have there's a line where the sergeant tells Condor to go to the air, so he's up one level.
Condor, go airborne.
Yeah, go airborne, Condor. And Condor tries to hand-to-hand like karate fight Jason for some reason. Didn't have a gun, didn't use a weapon or anything. I believe he has a giant gun.
Yeah, he's
a BFG as they refer to it. And but instead he decides to use his hand. He decides to like kick him. And of course that doesn't work. So Jason throws him off this little balcony, not balcony. What's the word? Like rafters?
Throws him off the rafters.
Yeah. Catwalk. There's a lot of names for this kind of area.
Into a drill.
Yeah, he throws him onto this drill. And there's actually a really cool shot where we kind of cut back to it. This drill bit where he's slowly spinning around it, falling further down. Which, I was like, all right, that's funny. All right.
And it fascinates Jason, too.
Yeah, Jason's like,
walk away from the explosion, Jason. He's just like, yeah.
I've never killed someone with a drill before.
It's the little things.
I've killed 200 men. Never once have I thrown them on a drill. This is different. I like it.
It was a big drill, too.
It was a really big drill. Then Sarge and Briggs and Gecko. 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 They're the ones who are together. He's with the two female grunts. There is also a male grunt, who I don't believe ever gets a name, or if he did, I never heard it. I don't remember his name, but so he's with them, and they're looking for Jason still. Briggs, she finds Condor, and she says he's screwed, which is a really great line.
Yeah, because Brodsky asked the status of Condor,
And she's like, he's
and they find him.
screwed.
Yeah,
It's so good. I love it. This
And-
movie is so crap, but in the best way. Like, I want to make sure it's clear. This movie is not good, but I love it.
yeah.
We cut to Gecko, who gets her neck slit by Jason, and she kind of stays alive for a while, and kind of stumbles over and finds the male grunt, who he sees her and he like sees her die, and then he also starts shooting up Jason and kind of pushes back onto this like weird
meat hook
spike thing, and he gets him there and he shoots him in like the kneecaps a couple times and his arm, like he shoots him a bunch and is like, oh, he's fine, I got him. And Sarge is like, hey, don't take your eyes off of him. And then they immediately cut to him not looking at him, being like, he's fine, I got this.
Yeah. He's not going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere. And then he cuts him in twain, right into, he is now two people. He has leg half and body half. We never see the leg half, actually.
But Jason just lifts himself off the meat hook and is like, all right, well.
Yeah, Jason doesn't care because it's nothing to him. And so yeah, we eventually see the male grunt crawling, cut in half, and then we cut to Briggs, we cut to Sarge, who then sees that meat hook fly in with Briggs on it. I don't know when she got put on the hook, but she did at some point, and now she's on the hook. That's her death. She's on the meat hook, and now the sergeant kind of runs away for a little bit. He kind of stops at a wall and is like, they're all gone. He realizes they're all gone. He's having that moment, and he gets stabbed by Jason from behind, and he's like, it'll take more than a poke in the ribs to take out an old dog like me. And then he gets stabbed again, and he's like,
and he says, that ought to do it.
It's around this point. Like, I had already known I liked this movie. I think this is the point where I realized, I love this. This is amazing. It might have been this, or it was the Condor's screwed line. One of the two got me. It's like, oh, okay, this movie knows what it is. This is quippy one-liners and death scenes, and I'm fine with that. In space. Jason's in space. Just accept it. That's how it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he leaves him, and it's very sad. Sarge is dead here. He's left for dead.
Best character. R.I.P.
Then we have Crutch, who is reuniting with the students, and they contact the pilot Lou, and are like, "Hey, can you get us to the place?" He's like, "Oh yeah, no, we're here." And then he sees. Wait, I'm missing a scene. No, you're right. No, I'm not. Lou just gets killed. Lou gets killed off screen. And I was confusing this with a scene later with Crutch in the bridge, and was like, but wait, someone else had to die before that scene could happen. Because I was thinking of the wrong scene. That's on me. My bad. No, yeah. Pilot just dies. Nothing really that crazy happens in that scene. He just gets killed, caught him off screen. He sees the blood. We find out later that it's a gruesome death, but at this point...
Grisly death, yeah.
At this point, all we see is some blood splatter on the, buttons and stuff.
And I think what makes that so effective at this point is that we're all the point of view is down below with the students and the professor and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then they just okay, all right, we're here at the place, and then they just see it on the screen, the ship just plowing into it, blowing up this space station conveniently made of glass. There's a great big space explosion and everything.
Yeah, space explosions that definitely happen in space.
To be fair, that was a giant space station. There would be tons of oxygen in it. There actually could be an explosion there. Probably not to the size it was.
Explosion of that size, though.
No, it was probably a little too big of an explosion for the amount of oxygen that would have been in that area where it
exploded. You know what? You're right. I changed my mind. This is an implausible movie. That's not what I thought.
I know. I thought this movie was scientifically accurate. I thought my Jason X was real.
Yeah. Sorry.
But yeah, so they crash through Solaris, running all the way through it to the other side, and they destroy Solaris. Everyone on that space station is dead now.
They're like, we can still turn around. And then they look in the rear view mirror, I guess, and then it's just exploding violently.
Yeah. There's a YouTube series called The Kill Count, and I need to watch this episode because I'm curious how many deaths he attributes to that scene. Because Jason truly just killed thousands of people probably in that one scene, taking his kill count from up from 200 something to now like thousands plus the 200 something.
Yeah.
Because he destroyed that space station. It's exploded now.
He killed basically the equivalent of a town of people.
Yeah, and
with one go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We cut back to the science room, like where all the students have been this whole time. I don't really know which room it's supposed to be. It's not the bridge. It kind of looks like a bridge from like a Star Trek. It is the lab, yeah. But so yeah, we have that. They cut back to them, and they're all kind of like, "Oh no, what are we gonna do now?" And then they hear Jason at the door, and they all scream with some of the worst like scream acting I've ever seen in a movie. It is rough. Like, I genuinely actually like a lot of the actors in this movie, like the way they do a lot of their scenes. But this scene is like, oh gosh, none of you know how to scream on camera. But yeah,
we've never been scared before.
Yeah, what's scared like? But yeah, so he spooks them at the door, and then we get a classic Kane Hodder Jason jump through the glass. His classic jump through a thing, it explodes. It has happened literally, I think, in every movie that Kane Hodder has been in, and I love it every time. It's beautiful. I love Kane Hodder. I wish this wasn't the last time we get to see Kane Hodder. Oh.
Not
really?
Again.
What happened now?
Don't know.
Okay. Well, your voice is still here. All right.
I just don't know what to tell you.
All right. We're going to keep rolling. I guess spoiler for you guys who were listening and don't know, we had some technical issues earlier. And, where were we?
All resolved.
Yeah, so we had that cool, jumps through the glass.
Jumps through the glass. Uh-huh.
And everyone but Professor Lowe escape.
Runs away.
They all run to a different room. Professor Lowe is stuck in that room. And the professor tries to, like, reason with Jason. Be like, I can get you money. I can get you famous. Please don't kill me. Oh, you just wanted your machete? Here's your machete. It's amazing. It's so bad. It's terrible. But I love every moment of it. And the professor gets killed off screen. Because he was trying to get to Jason. And then the survivors start to split up, preparing to leave in the shuttle. Crutch and Waylander head to the bridge. Sonoran and Cam go off together. I don't know what room they're even supposed to be in, but in that room they start kind of kissing and talking about their percent going up as they kiss. It's a weird scene.
And they're like, what's the odds of our survival? 12%.
Yeah.
He's like, you can't make it any higher.
And then they make out, and it's like, well, our chances just went up to 50%.
He's like, what if we take it to 100%? It's like, okay, so I guess maybe they play harmonica off screen. Or that's just his weird nerd talk about, upgrading her, as we're about to find out that she gets upgraded, and that's what takes their percent up? I don't know.
He does give her an upload, is what he calls it later.
An upload, yes.
Yeah.
But that may be a euphemism?
I don't like it. I don't like the implication.
All right. No one does.
But yeah, and then Janessa, Kinsa, and Rowan, they head towards the shuttle. But Rowan, she sees some movement. She sees someone that's alive, so she splits off of them, which you would assume would be the point where one of them is about to get killed. Like classic horror trope. Oh, they split up again? They already split up the party. And now they're splitting up the party within the split up party? Oh, one of them is someone's about to die. But surprisingly, no one dies from this split up. But yeah, so Rowan splits off because she finds someone. Then we cut to Crutch and Waylander, who make it to the bridge, and they find Lou's completely mangled body. Then we cut back to Rowan, who finds Sergeant Brodsky's he's still alive, and she lets them know, like, hey, he's still alive. Someone please come. I need help though. I can't get him on my own. And so Waylander is like, Waylander heads out to go help her. But when he gets there, Brodsky is gone. Where's Brodsky? We never really find out how he was able to get up or move or anything. We'll get to that later, but really there's no explanation here. He's just gone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then we cut to Jason up. They're back up to the bridge, and Crutch is sitting at the not the wheel, but the I guess it is. But he's sitting at the cockpit, and he sees the professor's head next to him. He looks over like, "Oh, hey, Professor, I'm glad you made it out." And then he realizes it's just a head, and Jason electrocutes him to death. So see, Jason moved a body. He took Professor Rose's head with him to
fool Crutch. Yeah, momentarily.
It's
buy him a little time. Yeah,
I love it.
Just
it's
playing
stupid.
a little prank.
Yeah, it's just, I'm a prankster.
Epic prank.
Hey,
Yeah.
he's been in cryo sleep for 450 years maybe. He
went in possibly in the early 20 teens when
maybe or in
golden
2000
age
or
YouTube
in
pranks,
who knows.
He's feeling inspired.
But then we have we cut back to the escape pod, or the escape shuttle, and Kinsa won't open the door for Rowan, Janessa, and Waylander. And she's just like, no. She keeps saying no. She won't open the door for them, and she tries to leave, but she's still connected to the fuel lines, so she explodes instead.
Yeah,
she dies because
little
she
escape pod just flies right up back into
I don't get the
ship.
motivation here.
I think
why wouldn't she open the door? I get that she's scared of Jason. She just literally watched her love die in front of her. I get that. I get why she's been emotionally broken. But Jason doesn't talk like other people. You know these are your friends. Why aren't you just letting them in real quick so you can all leave together? I don't get it.
Jason might teleport inside.
She just decided to be selfish so she can die and they don't have that escape route anymore.
Basically. The only reason she didn't die earlier.
Yeah, they explode and Jason.
Dude, yes.
Pretty much.
So that they can ruin an easy escape pod.
You're right. Jason shows up, but right after Jason shows up, so does Sunaran and KM. And KM is now
the Terminator.
She's the Terminator.
The Matrix.
She's the Terminator with the Matrix with a little bit of the lead character. I feel I felt vibes from the lead character from the Resident Evil movies as well.
Yeah.
And she just has this, I would say epic, but that would imply that it was actually well done. But it wasn't it wasn't bad. It was just a weird fight scene with Jason where she's just
really weird,
doing a bunch of flips and kicks and shooting him a bunch with some guns that don't really hurt him at all. Until she eventually
the gun sideways to shoot him,
and she's doing cool gun flips and stuff, and she's just being real cool. And then, but once again, kind of that weird flaw in they want this cool fight scene. She's using all these guns that do nothing to him before it's time to actually hurt him. So she switches to these guns that just obliterate him. And she shoots off his arm. She shoots off his leg. She shoots a giant hole in his chest. And then
a giant hole in his head.
Yeah, she just shoots his head, blowing it up practically.
From the chin up. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, also, sorry, during this fight, Brodsky shows up again and helps her, kind of. She says, I didn't actually need your help, but thanks, I guess. And we then find out that Waylander said, after this, she blows him up and she leaves him there. She leaves him in this room and they go off. And we find out that Waylander says Brodsky's going to be okay with, he's at 80%, with their technology, he's fine. Awesome. We didn't mention it here because it didn't really come across in note-taking wise. Brodsky so far the Sarge has been a great character. He's been one of the only characters who seemed with a head on his shoulders that made sense. Earlier, the professor tried to convince him to hey, don't kill Jason, and he's like, no. He's been completely one of the best characters maybe in the franchise.
There's a scene where the professor tries to bribe him, and he's like 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, and he's like 500. And then he goes into the other, and he talks to the grunt, so he's like, well, I promised the professor I would bring back alive. So we'll bring back a leg so that we can say that we tried our hardest to.
A little bit, yeah.
Brodsky is amazing. I love Sarge. He's probably he might be the best character in the whole franchise. He is amazing. Followed, honestly, personally at least, very closely by Janessa. I really love Janessa in this movie as well. For different reasons, she's just really funny. Like, they give her a lot of good, like, quippy lines. But yeah. Where were we? So yeah, they get on hold with another ship who's going to come and save them, but it won't be able to get there in time. It's going to take them 45 minutes to get there. But Waylander's like, oh, we only have 30 minutes. Don't even come. And then Janessa's like, don't listen to him. He's an idiot. Please come save us. Please save us. But then Rowan, because even though she knows nothing about future tech, just goes, well, why don't we just go to the other side of the ship? And they're like, well, we can't, because that part of the ship will still explode. She's like, well, why don't we just, like, not have those walkways that
lop it off
part of the ship? And they're like, huh, I guess we could explode them. And that's it. She basically solved the whole problem by just, I guess that the classic 2008 spirit. She was able to figure out the solution.
Yeah. Blow it up.
Yeah. She never said, she didn't say to blow it up, to be fair.
That's true.
But yeah, so they get this idea to do that. They realize they blow off the walkways. Then we cut to the first time to the medical area from earlier, which is starting to rebuild Jason with the nanobots.
For some reason.
Well, because it accidentally got turned on in like one of like the shakes or something. Apparently, they show it happen. To be fair,
starts scanning,
and it scans him. It's like, oh, this is a living life form that's injured. Let me help it, because it's just a machine that doesn't know any better. It starts helping him, and while this is happening, we're cutting back and forth to the survivors who are like setting up their little, explosives on all the tunnels. And we cut to him, and here he is. It's Uber Jason, which is the official title for this version of the character. Chris,
but it's really Mecha Jason.
Mecha Jason could be it, but he's Uber Jason. I'm going to refer to him as Uber Jason in my notes because that is what his name is on IMDb. Kane Hodder is credited as playing Jason and Uber Jason in this movie, and I will give Dallas his credit for his writing. That's Uber Jason, gosh darn it, and I respect Dallas. Because he looks like Stone Cold, and that's cool. as a now bald man with a beard, I respect it. It's a different, not the same bald, not the same beard, but I respect the idea of being a bald white man with a beard.
Dallas's name is Todd Farmer.
Yes, Todd Farmer, who is the writer. But yeah, so then we have Uber Jason. He shows up, and they have this there's actually kind of once again this movie has a lot of really good dialogue between the characters. Sunaran asks KM, hey, are you gonna be okay with this? She's like, I don't know, I'll try. I'm not giving it credit with it, but it felt very it felt right in the moment. And she goes to try, and she just gets her head knocked off by Jason. He just punches it off basically.
He sure does.
And they all be able to escape though, except for Waylander, who is stuck in there. And Waylander actually has the trigger to the explosives. So he sacrifices himself to save everyone, and he explodes the tunnel, sacrifices himself to kill Jason. And but Cam, and this is the point we find out where Cam actually is, her head's still alive though, because she's just gonna be carried around as a head for the rest of the movie.
She is. Yeah. No, absolutely.
But yeah, and Jason's not dead, and he's still somehow floating through space exactly where he needs to go. I guess maybe the explosion behind him propelled him to the door. Fine. Yeah. He starts breaking the hull, and Janessa starts to get sucked out the thing, and there's this kind of prolonged scene of her being not being able to reach. It's honestly a little too long of what, so we're gonna save her? Oh no, we just don't. She could have just died quicker. She could have just thrown her last one-liner of the movie where she says, this sucks on so many levels, and then died immediately. But instead we decided to prolong it for a minute. Okay. And as someone who actually really enjoyed her character there, I was like, oh, cool, we're going to save Janessa. This is a fake-out death. And then we just still killed her, and I was like, why did we watch for a minute as they tried to grab her hand, but couldn't? Okay.
How did you feel about that line?
It sucks on so many levels. I thought it was funny. I thought it was stupid. It's not good. I want to be clear. Nothing in this movie is good. It's just that, in my opinion, a lot of this movie is that perfect level of camp and crap that is funny. Yeah. It is funny.
The line she has earlier when Jason corners everyone and before KM enters, and they're like, "What do we do now?" And she's like, "Well, just die basically.
Yeah, like she's great. I love she's given a lot of the reasons why I like this movie's dialogue. The weird, she knows what's her character feels like she knows what's going on. This movie isn't good by any means. I want to make sure it's clear. I don't think this movie is good, but it's one of my favorites because it's so bad. I love it.
It is very bad.
In a purposeful way.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It knows it's bad, and it turns into, let's just make crappy one-liners the whole time, and let's all have the characters deliver them at the perfect time for those lines.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we have Sunaran, Brodsky, Rowan, and KM they're running from Uber Jason, but they can't make it to the Tiamat's escape shuttle because they have no power and they can't open the escape hatch. So Sergeant Brodsky, he says he's gonna go do this. Yeah, there's some letter.
Gotta go do a spacewalk.
There's some acronym for it that doesn't even add up. But then they say, "Oh, well, that's what a spacewalk is," and I'm like, okay. He could have just called it a spacewalk, but he gave it some 3-letter acronym that I can't remember what it was. But it doesn't really. I'm sure there
doesn't matter.
I'm sure there are even a way to break it down that makes it make sense. But it literally immediately Rowan's like, what does that mean? Because we're not supposed to know what it means. They're like, oh, that's a spacewalk. It's like, why didn't he just say that? Okay. While he's doing this, they're having a little bit of issue diverting the power to get it back there. So they decide that they need to create a diversion. And so when Uber Jason he shows up, they put him into the VR room, and they turn it into Crystal Lake 1908, or 1980, which
yeah.
So 1980. So this would be based off around the first time the first movie came out, which means all the other movies happened in this timeline still, which means he died for the first time. The hanging did happen before 2008, so the whole whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not like they retconned the timeline, which retcons are lame. But if they were doing that, fine. They wanted to make it fit.
2 girls load in.
Yeah, we have two girls load in, and they're like, we want to smoke pot, drink beer, and play some premarital harmonica. And they take off their tops.
Come on.
And once again, it's so stupid. But in the perfect way of it knew what it was. Let's just have these characters literally show up. They're VR characters still, but they show up and just say the exact things to set off Jason. It's honestly that movie sucked really bad. But 9 had a very similar line with in the car with the main character Steven and the girl being like, oh, you guys gonna go out there and have premarital harmonica now that Jason's dead? This franchise, the New Line part of this franchise has realized the tropes and is having characters call them out in the movies, which I appreciate. It's kind of a meta commentary on it, which spoiler, the Scream is my favorite horror movie franchise, and so I love meta commentary on horror. So yeah. I love this scene, and we get a kind of a throwback to I think it's
one of the deaths.
I think it's 6's death. I think it's
there's a sleeping bag beating.
Sleeping bag kill.
Because the girls 6. Crawl into a sleeping bag and giggle up at Jason, and then it cuts back after a scene of Brodsky fixing the power, diverting the power.
It's 7. It's 7. It's 7 because 7 it was cut to crap, even though it could have been a good movie if it wasn't.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's that.
And then it cuts back to him smacking the girls with the other girl, and
they're laughing ow, because it's a VR simulation and they're not real. It's perfect.
And then to end it, he smacks her into a tree.
Yeah.
And then they mention how impressive his killing capabilities are.
Yeah. And then we cut right around that happens. The door opens, but there's an explosion that also happens that kind of shakes everyone. It also Jason also at that point notices Sunaran through the VR. Somehow he sees him, even though from his angle he shouldn't be able to. But he says, "I think he saw me," and he starts coming towards him. But they're able to all escape at the last possible second, and they all get onto the the ship, but the explosion on their ship happens right before they get on the shuttle. So Jason and Sarge they're not dead. They're gonna both be dead here. So they start drifting off, but oh no, Jason's not dead. He's floating towards them still. But out of nowhere, from the side, boom! Sarge just takes him out with a trajectory that makes no sense, but I don't care. It was funny. He tackles him last second, saves them, and they start crashing down to Earth.
Hurtling towards Earth.
Sorry, Earth 2.
Yeah,
Earth 2.
And they crash into a lake, and there's two onlooking teens who are like, oh, we should go check that out. And then we close with a shot
of the lake.
They close it with a shot of his mask in the lake. I'll start. I love this movie. Is it good? No. Do I love the quippy dialogue, the camp? Like, I think it. Do I like most of the a lot of the kills are fun too? Like, I think it's stupid. There's no reason for this to be in space. Like, the whole reason it's in space is just because the writer, that's his one pitch. He walked into a room and said, Jason in space. And they're like, all right, yeah, let's do it.
Spacing.
Spacing, yeah. Space. And we got Jason in space, and it's Jason in space. There's a lot of sci-fi tropes. There's all the Friday the 13th tropes. I love it. I think it was hilarious. I think it's a weird movie where, like, we talk about, oh, it's so bad, it's good. But it felt intentional, which typically if a movie's trying to be bad and good, it's not. Like, I've watched some other movies that, like, they know they're bad and are trying to lean into it, and it sucks. There's a movie we're going to watch eventually called Thanksgiving 3. Thanksgiving 1 is a so bad it's good movie. Thanksgiving 3 was like, oh, everyone loved the so bad it's good first movie. Let's just be weird and crazy, and it's atrocious.
So I'm assuming we will be watching Thanksgiving 1.
Oh, we're watching both.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're actually watching Thanksgiving 1 this year at Thanksgiving.
I just wanted to make sure that, we had the lore.
Yeah, no, we're watching Thanksgiving 1, and you might be like, why isn't there a Thanksgiving 2? We'll get to that when we get to that. That's not actually about today. The point is, I'm using that as an example of a horror movie that knew it was bad and tried to lean into it, and it was bad because of it. This movie felt like it knew what it was and was so campy and so bad that it was good, but it worked, in my opinion at least. I thought it was I thought it was a perfect stupid movie. I enjoyed it. Like, we've talked about, like, I think Isaiah was the first one to mention, like, would I suggest someone watching this metric for these movies? I think this movie is one of, like, 4 movies that people should actually watch. Like, it's like 1, 4, 6, and this one. Those are the ones I think are worth watching. Like, I love everything that this movie is. Is it good? No. As a cinephile, are you gonna enjoy this movie? No. Is there a reason there's a 25% on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics? Yes. And it deserves that. But I think the audience is too hard on it. Because this movie has like 4.4 on IMDb, which is the second worst behind only Jason Goes to Hell. And I don't get it. I don't get how 7, 8, or 5 are higher than this. Like, this is fun. Is it good? Absolutely not. But it shouldn't be. The Friday the 13th franchise doesn't have to be good. The first one isn't good. It's a classic, and it's awesome for what it is, but it's not a good movie. Like, it's good despite itself. It's good despite every decision they made in it. And that's kind of like this franchise is. The ones that are good shouldn't be good, but they are. And then a lot of them aren't. That's my kind of closing out, like, this movie and just general. That's my thoughts on Friday the 13th franchises. The ones that are good are great, and I love them, and the ones that are bad are terrible, and I hate that I watched them. But also, I kind of have a sick love for even those ones. I'm glad I watched them, even though I just said I shouldn't have watched. Like, part of me, like, I had to watch 5 to appreciate 6, I feel like. Like, I love this franchise. It's only my first horror franchise I've watched in full, but I think it's going to be hard for another horror franchise to beat it in my mind.
I will say that I was initially very worried as the movie started off, especially the beginning scenes. I was like, oh, I hate this movie already. Like the whole as they're walking through the military facility, there's all this like political like uh, asserting my dominance here and boring conversation that I just couldn't care less about. Uh, and then after he kills all of the military people, and then Rowan picks up the shotgun, and Jason just lets her walk away for some reason. I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna hate this movie. This movie is going to suck. And it's taking itself way too seriously, and I'm not even gonna have anything to laugh at. Here we go. And then, yeah, they got to space, things got real kooky, and they started throwing out those quippy one-liners, and it started to win me back slowly but surely. And I would say that overall, I did enjoy watching this movie. Was it good? Absolutely not, as you can tell from all the things we've said thus far. Not a good movie at all. But it is a fun time to watch. I would highly recommend it watching it with other people, because it will be even more fun to make fun of, and to laugh at all those goofy dad jokes that they throw in there. Shout outs to Todd, but also points off for Todd for lazy writing in other parts.
Points to Todd for looking like Stone Cold. Forgot that on there.
Yeah.
He needs that. He needs the points.
Thank you, mildly chilly Dallas. Second best character behind Sarge.
No, that's definitely
No.
to Janessa. But
Yeah, Janessa, then KM, specifically when she becomes the Terminator.
and then when she becomes the head is also great.
So yeah, that was a fun time. I enjoyed it.
What are your thoughts overall on the franchise?
Overall, on the franchise, I am very glad that I finally got to watch this entire series. You know, as a big horror fan, it's definitely been something that's kind of been a landmark that I have missed for a long time now, and I can finally say that I've done it. There were parts of it that were very hard sitting through, and that I did not have a good time. But looking back on it, and being able to make all these jokes about the franchise as a whole, it feels good. It does feel good. And if you are a horror fan, yeah, I would say they're worth a watch. Jose?
I agree with that outlook on the franchise. I agree with Austin's assessment of this movie, and so I won't repeat what y'all said about that, or just echo that. Um, on that same note, I mean, I know this isn't the last time we're going to see Jason as a character on film.
It is the last time we'll see
but
Kane
this
Hodder,
is
though.
As
yes,
Jason.
which is sad.
For this podcast,
Right.
we will be covering a couple of them, another franchise he did, where he's just playing Jason, but you can't call him Jason.
Yeah.
Look forward to the Patrick series coming
nonetheless,
at some point.
Well, I did not expect to think this when I even got through like a lot of the movie. Not even just the beginning, but a lot of it. But strangely and unexpectedly, I think Jason X is a good ending to the independent Friday the 13th series. And
well, don't call it that. It's Jason X. They don't have the rights to it.
well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
You mean the Jason movies? The Jason movies.
Yeah, the Jason movies. That's right. Yeah. We all know for proper reasons what I mean. But
they do own the rights now. You're fine.
I was just. Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
okay,
you're
the Friday the 13th movie.
I'm just messing with you.
So with the first Friday the 13th TM movie, like Chris said, like Austin said, I thought like this isn't a good movie, but somehow I'm just enthralled. I'm enthralled by it, and the luster grew with each passing movie, especially with the first few ones that felt so simple and primal, just all sit there in Crystal Lake with such a small basic plot. And I've just been thinking more and more like, what is it about those first few movies, especially all these, especially those first few, that keeps bringing me back? And this movie kind of takes it upon itself to explain it. So y'all have pointed out already, like how the cheaper, quirkier, campier parts of the movie became more self-aware and were brought to the forefront very intentionally here, like the tropes, especially, and things like that. And I think in the same way, they've done the same thing with a lot of the deeper, more symbolic aspects of Jason's character and of the stories. There's I'm thinking, for example, of in Star Wars, you've got the Force, and then when they made the later the prequels, they decided to throw in the midichlorians, and that was such a disappointment to everybody because it seemed to deflate the mystery of this strange thing at the center of the story, the Force. And the midichlorians, like we try to have the scientific explanation, and it just takes all the air out of it for some reason. Jason, they could have absolutely done that with this one. They've got nanotechnology. They've got the guy at the beginning poised to explain why Jason is the way he is. He says, like, his regenerative abilities cry out for research. And they don't. He just remains this mystery throughout the movie. And I really like that. And what's more is that they hammer in that point by making these repeated references to, for one, Grendel. That's the name of their ship. The classic character of living alone, in the swamps. Right. Better known in Dr. Seuss's adaptation of the story as the Grinch. We don't have to interpret that now. But then Tiamat is the Mesopotamian goddess of the sea, linked with chaos and the womb and all that business, very primordial, same deal. Azrael is the very, very undefined character from, I want to say, Numbers or Leviticus, one of the Pentateuchs, where they're just listing all the books of the law. And they say that, the scapegoat that you lay all the sins on will be released into the wilderness to Azrael. And so Azrael is this strange, mysterious, undefined thing that lives in the wilderness. And the placement of these names, I think, is not important. You might chalk that up to bad writing. Like, they're just kind of scattered in there. The name of the ship, this one character who's kind of a moron. But the movie is aware, as of the tropes, also with the same kind of symbolism that makes Jason a character a lot like the Babadook or these other monsters that lack explanation. And that's kind of what makes him scary and enticing in a way, and very deeply psychological. So this movie, like, I don't know. I did not expect Jason in space to embrace its own story that way. But it was very loyal to itself and to the franchise. And it was really fun.
And it was really fun.
Yeah. I
Space explosions, yeah.
You once again prove why I love having you on this podcast, because you know things that I don't, and like, oh wow, yeah, this has been great. This has been a great first half of an arc. Like, in a sense, it could have been its own arc, but due to Freddy vs. Jason, it's part of this super arc we're doing to start this. But yeah, it's bittersweet. Like, I'm glad we made through it, because some of those movies were rough, but I'm kind of sad that we're almost done talking about Jason. Like, sad.
I'm gonna miss it, yeah.
But next week we're talking about another classic. We're talking about Nightmare on Elm Street next week.
I'm honestly very excited.
Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Freddy.
I've seen this movie and I love it. Like, it's one that we talked about in the first episode. Not to harp on it too much. I came into this podcast not really caring about horror movies, just discovering a horror movie like video essay series that made me love them, but had never really seen most of them. This is one of the few ones I had seen and liked. Like, I'm excited to talk about this franchise. It has its dips and it's a lot of dips and some highs, but I am looking forward to this.
Just like Jason as a character is cool and mysterious, I think Freddy as a character is
as iconic as Jason is. I think the only character that might truly be as iconic is maybe Michael Myers, but Freddy's up there, and I'm looking forward to start discussing Freddy next week. So we will see you next week for Nightmare on Elm Street. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See y'all later.